All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Granted. We are back with another episode of Granted.
Hey guys, welcome back to Granted.
As you may be able to tell, this is a new setting. This is a new person. Okay, we've just entered a new time of our lives. So welcome back to another episode of Granted. We have officially been in Tennessee for almost a month now.
Basically,
4 weeks. This is the take 2. Yeah, we're going.
Okay,
Are you
wow.
ready?
Yeah, I guess I'm ready. Let's go. Well, I probably didn't leave the house till 11:30. So
That's late.
really.
It's really late.
When did we get this? You got like
He's been here for a minute. Yeah. Move it a little closer to you. Yeah, they can hear you. You can even use the headphones to test it if you want. But we're recording. But sometimes I kind of like to ease it in without people knowing, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's like, no, because that way it's more natural instead of like, oh, we're starting. I think New Year's is really overrated, is what I'm starting to experience here. Like, we went, I don't know, it's like a fun celebration, but it's just like any other day minus the countdown. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, you can enjoy it like any other day.
So what
I think it's overrated because like Christmas, you have your traditions to look forward to, and I don't know, we don't really have a New Year's tradition.
so me and my family have a New Year's
What's your
tradition.
New Year's tradition?
We do a Christmas dinner. No, a New Year's dinner. So we
Okay.
do like a really nice New Year's Eve dinner.
Okay. What does that include?
Like yesterday we had crab, we had a tomahawk steak, we had short ribs, roasted potatoes.
Okay.
So we kind of go the whole nine.
Yeah.
And it's only ever for New Year's Eve that we do
You
it.
don't do it for Christmas Eve either?
Christmas is just a little bit different. I think it really depends on who we're spending Christmas with. Like,
Yeah.
so for the past couple years, we've just done it by ourselves.
Yeah.
But I had family in town, and you know, I think that there's so much chaos on Christmas that everything can go wrong.
Yeah, it's true.
So on Christmas Day, my brother was making a prime rib
Okay.
and our oven stopped working.
That's, so what
So
happened?
he was like, the oven was not on for like an hour, like a solid hour. So, it's kind of funny because we planned to have dinner at 4, and
Oh, no.
dinner was not until at least 7 o'clock.
What?
That's how behind we were. So, and by that time, like people were starting to get grouchy, they were
Yeah.
hungry.
Yep.
I feel like a lot of people also only eat one meal on Christmas. So,
Yeah. People are starving,
it was crazy.
No
Crazy.
breakfast.
It was, I mean, we typically do brunch, but they didn't have brunch with us. But we just do something small.
Who normally goes over to your house for Christmas?
We'll usually have, I have 5 siblings in total, including myself, and then my dad, and my mom has always been like the, I don't know if I would say the mediator, but like the gatherer.
Yeah, she
Like,
brings the people together.
yeah, like with my dad having multiple kids with other people, like my mom's always just made sure that we're always trying to be one.
Yeah.
So this was like one of the first years where a couple of my siblings weren't there, but my sister was there. So
Okay.
it was really I have no idea either. My sister is close in age with you. She's about to turn 21 in February.
Oh, wow.
And then my youngest brother, actually his birthday was on the 31st.
That's awesome.
So he just turned 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, so like your brother's closer in age to me than
My
your
sister. Yeah.
So they're both in
And,
college?
but like neither one of them is in college. I think they're just trying to figure it out. And then my youngest sibling is 12. So,
Oh, okay, wow.
like I'm old enough to be her parent.
Yeah.
So we really have the dynamic there is just
Yeah.
different,
Yeah, I completely understand.
Because I feel like it's more of a parental relationship
Right.
until she gets to a certain age where
Until she like matures enough to understand. It's
yeah,
like,
exactly. Like
yeah,
I'm not cool to her at all.
yeah.
Like
No, you're cool to me, all right. And I wasn't able to do that either until like later on, which kind of lead into because they don't know who you are, you should introduce yourself, like the relationship.
yeah, okay. So my name is Tashina. Me and Grant used to work together. It's been about almost 3 years
Yeah,
now.
it's been a really long time.
Were you a freshman when you started
No, I was a
working?
sophomore,
Okay, I was like, I met Evan when he
or
was a
like
freshman.
the summer in between.
Yeah, the
You
summer in
know?
between freshman
Yeah.
and sophomore year. So I used to be Grant's supervisor, and then there was a couple other kids who went to Northfield that I met at the time. And ever since then, since I left that job, we've just, you know, I like to think of myself as a mentor to you, and
Yeah.
also, yeah, close
Family.
friends, family friend for sure.
Yeah.
Like you've gone to a lot of family events now, so it's awesome.
Yeah. No, it's been definitely a blessing to be able to have a relationship with someone that's older than you, who is really my manager. You know what I mean? Like Evan and I were getting yelled at by you at some point, right? And now it's like, all right, now we're doing a podcast. Definitely.
Even just leaving that job, I feel like you guys were
The favorites.
you were the favorites for sure, but also it was what was keeping me there longer than I should have been.
Yeah.
Just because I was looking forward to working, like I always try to schedule your shifts
Yeah.
with my shifts.
Yeah, all three of us together.
Yeah, so we could all work together at the same time,
Yeah.
and it was always a good time. And I also felt like I learned so much as a supervisor during that time, just being able to work with high school kids.
Yeah, different age groups.
Yeah, like, some people I was managing were older than I
Yeah.
was. So, like the dynamics
Shout
of
out
that are
Taj.
different. Yeah, it's very different. And especially because I think I was so young to be a manager of so many people.
Yeah. How did you even find yourself in that position?
It's kind of funny. My first job was working at the rec. I was a coach.
Okay.
And then, so I coached for a really long time. And I think, this is something we've talked about a lot is like the rec is a great place to always have a place to come back to
Hmm.
when you need to work. You can always pick up shifts, you can always work at other centers. I feel like, there's constant changes, so they're always looking for people. And so I used to be a front desk person, just like you and Evan.
Yeah.
And then I just feel at some point I was over at Carla Madison and my supervisor there, we really got along, but also I'm just a very personable person and I think that kind of set me apart.
Right.
So then when I became a coordinator, it was almost like a no-brainer. Um, and I feel like coaching really made me a great manager
That
because
makes sense.
when you coach, you're dealing with different personalities too, and when you're managing people, you really have to be a people person to
Yes.
understand how to deal with people, especially in a professional environment. When you're having conversations about not doing a great job at work
Yeah.
or showing up on time or those little nuances of things and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's definitely a part that I don't wouldn't not look forward to is having to confront people about messing up. It's like, I mess up enough on my own. I'm not trying to have to deal with all that, but it is part of being a leader.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it kind of, if you played sports, especially, it can kind of stem from that.
yeah.
Because I was a captain when I played lacrosse in college. And I feel that to be a good leader, you just always have to lead with empathy.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's not necessarily about how you would want to be approached, like from my perspective, but maybe it's just like, if I'm in this person's shoes, how would I want to be talked to about this situation in the most respectful manner, right? Especially because I think it's interesting both being a coach and being a supervisor. Like for me, I was so close in age with you guys, so I'm like, oh, I'm cool,
Yeah.
like I'm cool, but also I cannot be cool.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to bridge that gap at times to be like, yo, this is cool. but also I'll help you if you help me.
Hmm.
And I don't know, that's the interesting part of it and just understanding people's personalities.
Yeah, and how they mesh, right?
Like, do you want to be a supervisor ever?
I think,
Manage a team
yeah,
or anything?
I could see myself managing a team because, group project, you already know who's taking the role of group leader. Like I am, and it kind of sucks. Like group projects do suck for that reason because I mean, someone steps up and it's normally me, but then people don't do the work. You know what I mean? But when it's in a job setting, it's a little bit different. People have to do the work,
Mm.
but then you do have to deal with when they don't do their work, you have to get on them about it. And in a school setting, it's more like, okay, you're just not doing the work. There's nothing I can do about it. But I could see myself leading a team, sure.
I think also too, there's something to be said about loyalty. Like in whatever you do, especially when it comes to work, I think that it's a very underrated concept to be like, I have your back.
Mm,
That's part of my job, right? Is to make sure that I'm advocating for you.
hmm.
And I think once you do that with work, like it kind of comes back full circle
Yeah,
because like you recognize that I do that. So then you're like, I always felt if I was low on shifts or we didn't have enough staff, I could always call you or Evan, and without a doubt, one of you guys
would pick it up,
we're gonna
right?
show up,
Yeah.
because you knew I needed the help, and I feel like that was some of the best parts of the job is just recognizing that you have people who are willing to help you just as much as you're trying to help them.
Yeah, and that goes beyond just work too. Like,
Hmm.
I think after that point, and after you left, it became like, okay, if you need help with anything, we're there, and
Yes.
vice versa, instead of just like picking up a shift.
And I think,
So,
like that translated after you guys graduated, right?
yeah.
Because there was multiple conversations that I had with you guys individually where I was like, if you need me, just call.
Yeah.
Like, just pick up the phone if you need your
Like if we couldn't
strengths.
drive home,
Yeah, if
all
if
this.
you don't like, if you don't want to call your parents, if whatever situation you're in and you don't feel safe, like it doesn't really matter. Just know that I'm there. And I feel like there's a lot of times where people don't have those people,
No.
you know? And I think it's harder for your age group because you guys are just at your age getting out of high school and going into college, you're just figuring out a lot of stuff. I think shame and embarrassment can come hand in hand with certain things that you do. You don't want to call your mom and be like, "Hey, I need
Yeah.
you to pick me
Yeah.
up." But and I never really had that person when I was in high school, when I was like, I didn't really party a lot at all either, but just to be like, hey, I have somebody who I can call and talk to.
Yeah.
And I think that's really underrated, like these days,
It is.
you know?
Like the backup, not the backup, but like your parents are always there,
Yeah.
but to have someone else that you're way more comfortable with at any situation.
And I think it helps because I'm, not that far. Like, obviously, we have an age gap, but I'm not that far apart from you
No,
where I can still relate to all the things that you're going through in your
most
life.
definitely.
And I think, yeah, we relate to our parents, but they're still our parents.
Yeah. Like
Like,
they're judging you or they're like something's gonna happen if you call
yeah,
them, you know?
yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that because you didn't have that person in your life that motivated you to become that person for us? Did that play a role?
I would say, I always had my brother because we were the same age, but that was a little bit different because how am I gonna, call him to come pick me up when we're neither
Yeah,
one of us?
he probably needs to be picked up
Yeah,
too, you know?
exactly. Together. But I think also coaching really just, I was 21 when I started as a varsity head coach. That's like
That is super young.
so young. Like
You're literally the same, almost the same age as the kids.
I think that was like the big thing that we are so close in age. But I coached over at Kennedy High School and I love the kids. They Kennedy just doesn't have a lot of resources like a lot of the other high schools do because
Yeah.
they don't have the budget, you know, just the location of where the school is in general. But I really recognize as a coach that a lot of my kids were having problems in their life that they come out in different parts. Sometimes it comes out at practice. I really wanted them to feel, even when I coached, like this was their second family.
Yeah.
I didn't really care. It doesn't matter what you're going through in school. It doesn't really, I understand, I can empathize with whatever you're going through at home. And a lot of those times, like things would present themselves at practice and it would be hard to ignore. So I was just like, I want this. Yeah, it's practice, but this is also a safe space for you to be yourself, have a second family. And I think working at Kennedy, where they don't have any money, like, or they didn't never received gear, anything like that, you just kind of deal with a different level of appreciation with those types of kids.
Yeah.
Where they didn't really have anything. They're in a household where they have multiple siblings, probably a single parent. So it's just what their life was different. And I think they really benefited from having one person in their corner.
I agree.
So when I left there, I was there for 2 years, but I took all the kids out to dinner and they all cried.
Oh.
And I was just like, we can't go through this.
Yeah.
This is exactly why I don't want to leave, because I was so attached to them. And it was also hard because, they grow up, you kind of watch them. I've seen a couple of the kids I used to coach out at the bar before.
That's so funny.
And it's really funny because I'm just like, can't buy you a drink.
That's awesome.
Now that they're 21, so I feel like that really changed my perspective on just having somebody who's just going to be there for you.
Yeah.
Just having somebody you can call, whatever it is. And I try to be that for a lot of people in my life.
But that can be hard to do if you're trying to be that person for everybody.
Yeah, but
does that feel like a lot sometimes?
No, I don't feel like I'm a people pleaser by any means. I think that I'm a low maintenance friend too. Like I don't like even with us. I don't need you to text me. I don't need you to check in all the time. But if you hit me up and you're like, "Hey, let's catch up." I'm going to prioritize that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the difference is. Like I'm here, but I don't need to be on top of everything that you're doing.
Because you got a lot of different people too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting that you said the thing about coaching, because I feel like that's how more high school sports should be, instead of, some coaches really just hammer home like we need to win. We need to win and this is like a serious thing. But what you set up for those kids was a place where they could kind of just enjoy the sport and also have a place to talk about life, instead of, like don't talk about anything but the sport,
We used to, so there was a couple things when I was a coach that I had instilled with my team. And twice a week we had mandatory study hall hours.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
It was an hour before practice where I would actually take their phones. And that was probably like the most difficult part, was like taking their phones.
Yes.
So that was like step one, because ineligibility was a topic of conversation. It always is when you coach
with
a sport.
Any sport.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. And I really wanted to make sure we were not ineligible.
Right.
Because, even when I used to play sports in high school, like that was a thing for me. Yeah. So that was the first one. The second one was your seasons aren't that long, obviously, because you're either spring or summer or fall or whatever, right? So you don't have that much time. And especially if you're not a good team, like you're not making it to playoffs, so then your season's even shorter.
Right.
But once a month, we did a team bonding thing. And
that's good.
I remember the first one was I hosted dinner at the school.
Yeah.
And then I split everybody up into groups. And I was just like, you guys have to come up with a song and a choreography within like 5 to 10 minutes. Pick a song and then we'll all watch you and whatever. And it was so much fun. The second time we went on a hike up in Evergreen.
Nice.
And we all met at the school. I brought snacks. And then I can't remember what the third one, but like that was my goal, was to just be like, we can have a good time. You guys don't even really have to like each other.
Yeah.
Right? But you need to recognize that we all have to work together in some capacity.
Yes.
And I always, even when I had a lot of coaches where there were things where I hated about them. And I think that made me a better coach to be like, what did I like and what didn't I like?
Yes.
And I tried to really instill that in how I was as a coach. I remember I had a coach who would always say, you can motivate kids differently. So I had a teammate who would love to be motivated by being kind of embarrassed, like
Mm.
yelled at in front of everybody.
Mm.
I'm not like that.
Me either.
Like, don't single me out.
Yeah.
And then also too, I always with my team, I was like, if you guys do anything wrong, it's team punishment. It doesn't matter that it was you.
Yes.
You need to recognize that you all succeed together or you all fail together.
Right.
So, how do we, and I think once you reframe that mindset, it becomes less individualized of who you are as a player to who you are as a teammate.
Yes.
And that just made everything easier to for them to recognize like, yeah, you have a family at home, but yeah, you have a family here.
Mm-hmm.
And we can succeed and struggle together and have wins and losses and because nobody else is going to understand it than the person who's going through it with you, right?
Yeah.
So that made everything a lot better.
That's definitely, you took it beyond the sport, which is rare, honestly. Like to be able to do team bonding, that's not something that anybody does anymore, you know?
But you think about it and you're just like, we're all just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, together.
Yeah. And I was 21. I did not know any idea like what we were doing.
Your first year, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like my first year, especially because we had an athletic director where I didn't have support. Like there was, I think, one game where um we didn't have a athletic director there and they were just like, well, where's your trainer? And I'm just like,
I am the trainer.
Yeah, exactly. No, like our trainer was at a different game and things like that, you kind of just roll with the punches and figure it out.
Yeah.
But as a somebody who's 21, I'm just like, I look like I'm the same age as the kids. And I remember when we had a parent meeting, I could hear the parents being like, that's your coach? Like, she looks very young.
Yeah.
Like, I look close in age with them, and I was. But I really want to establish this idea that it doesn't really matter how old I am. Like, I actually know what I'm doing. I've been here before. I've done the sport, whatever. And I think I really just wanted to be a coach that was admired. Like, I wanted to have an impact on other kids' lives in a positive way. It didn't really matter if we won, right?
Yeah, no.
Like I didn't care about that part. I wanted you to have a person where you're like, yo, this person was cool. Like they were dope.
Like I could rely on them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always what I strive for. And I feel like doing that, the sport came next. Like being a coach was just like the next part of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What about you? Have you had good or bad coaches?
I've had both. So right before this podcast, the reason I was gone is I was actually had a reuniting moment there with my old AAU team. Mm-hmm. And I've played for 3 different AAU teams and Northfield, of course. But it is interesting to see, like, I left my old AAU team because I didn't like being yelled at. Like, I literally left for that reason. And I remember it was to the point where, I had a conversation with my parents, like, this is not what I want. And I left, like, mid-season, but I'm still really close friends with a couple of the guys on that team. And then you come back, like, our coach was there today. And, like, he was the reason that I left. But at this point, we have a relationship where it's, like...
different.
Yeah, like, he could also come on the podcast. Like, I have a lot of love for him, and I appreciate him more after coming back and realizing that it wasn't that big of a deal. But sports is definitely, like... He yelled at us a lot, but that created a family. Like, we were a family. And then with Northfield, definitely, like... going to the Final Four and growing up together made it a family as well. So those 2 teams were probably my favorite 2 teams to be a part of. I'll never forget the Final Four run. Like, that was a dream of mine. And we started, like, our coach came in, Coach Dre came in our sophomore year. We were terrible. And then we lost the next year. We lost in the first round of the playoffs. and then we continued to develop and then made it all the way to the Coliseum, which was like that created a family. Like all of those guys, I saw them like 5 days ago, or for LeBron's birthday. Yeah, we celebrated LeBron's birthday. We basically had two national holidays. LeBron's birthday and then New Year's.
In the
So
same week.
yeah, what a week. But I saw them as well. So you never that bond is never broken. Like if you like just as you said, you saw your old players at the bar and it's like nothing changed,
Yeah.
You're still bonded from that experience. And that's how it will be for basketball too, which
Yeah.
is beautiful.
I think too, I had a coach who really stripped away my love for basketball.
Yeah.
And you recognize how impactful that can be
Yeah.
to how you feel about the sport,
Hmm.
like to something you've done for a majority of your life, and then just be like, wow.
You don't love it anymore.
But also too, you recognize how important coaches are in that moment.
Yeah.
And I don't think coaches even recognize
No.
that they have the ability to do that. And that was not a person who I wanted to be. So it's unfortunate because I think especially in male sports, there's so much yelling
There's so much yelling.
and also shit talking.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the way that men think that you're supposed to motivate each other,
Right.
which is unfortunate because I think that sometimes there's a lot more to be said in silence than to say anything at all.
Yeah, I agree. But honestly, what I want to bring up is also the fact that okay, you were a coach at 21, and then you were a supervisor at what age?
Let's see, because I'm 30, I just turned 30 this past year. I would have been 26.
26 as a supervisor. And then what's your current position?
So now I'm the Denver Regional Director for Senator Hickenlooper.
Okay, so like at 30, which is insane. And we've had this conversation before, and this is like a main topic that I wanted to bring up. People don't find themselves in these positions. What makes you unique and what makes it you appealing to employers for them to be like, this, we want her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'll say that like starting at the rec and being a coordinator, like that was something that really set me apart because I had started managing, I think I was managing like 20 people,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes more.
Right.
And I was doing all of your shifts. I'm dealing with disgruntled and like constituents as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say what I feel like set me apart was also what helped me in at the rec was like that when I left there, I was really unhappy. I That year was like right after COVID and I had started having panic attacks, like
Mm-hmm.
mental health terrible because my schedule at the rec was like never consistent. So some days I'd be there from 5 to 1, other days I'd be there from like 7 to 11,
Mm-hmm.
or just like some crazy, my schedule was insane. I
Right.
never had the same shift any day of the week. And I remember even leaving the rec, like my mom was super disappointed because she's like, well, this is a good job. You meet a lot of people, you know a lot of people. And I feel like in that moment, I had no idea where I was going to go next. And I was just like, I'm just going to let, like, Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but also, I think in that, especially with work, you can kind of get into this mindset where you feel like this is, okay, is this how I'm supposed to be treated? When in reality, it's just like any relationship. Like, it should be reciprocated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really unhappy. And I feel like once I made that decision, shortly after I started going to therapy because my panic attacks had gotten so bad. And I really was just like, I'm amazing. So I took the summer off. I left the rec in May. I took the summer off. And then I started working at a nonprofit as a consultant. And then they enjoyed working with me so much, they had an open position later that year, and then they hired me full time. So I was there for 2 years. And part of the reason I left my last job was because I was like, I'm doing a lot and my pay is not reflecting what I'm
Yes.
doing.
Yes.
And I remember having a conversation with my supervisor, and I was like, she goes, how much money is going to be enough money for you to like stay? And I had told her I'm expecting a $15,000 raise.
Mm-hmm.
And our CEO at the time would not have a conversation with me about it. And at that point, I was just like, even if you wouldn't have would have had a conversation with me and not given me the money, I feel like it's just like respectful as a leader to just sit down and hear me out.
Yes.
So that really pissed me off.
Yes.
After that, I had a great annual performance review. I had a like you typically are like rated every year once you get into the professional setting. You have like certain topics where you're rated throughout the year. And they're sometimes out of 10, sometimes out of 5. I was and it's usually on a scale too where you're like average, above average, or like above satisfactory.
Yeah.
So I was above satisfactory at my work. So that means I'm doing more than what's
Yeah.
expected out of me.
Right.
And at that point, after I had my review and they didn't want to have a conversation with me, I had a 4% raise, which nobody told me about,
Mm-hmm.
which to me was crazy because it wasn't even enough money to like make a difference.
Yeah.
At that point, I had told my supervisor, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to start shopping around. I applied for one job, I didn't get it. And then I applied for the position with the senator, which I had heard there was about 50 to 60 applicants.
That's wild.
I went through 4 rounds of interviews.
Yeah.
My last interview was with the senator himself.
That's crazy.
Crazy. It was insane. And that was the interview I thought like was going to be the most challenging.
Yeah.
And it ended up feeling like we were just sitting down like at a fire, having a beer together, having a conversation. But one of the things I really pride myself on that I think sets me apart almost always is emotional intelligence. Like my ability to just be in a room of people and know, I often tell people like I can gauge what my response needs to be or like what response I'm trying to get out of you based on how our conversation is going.
Right.
And a lot of people don't have that. You know, even when you're talking just one on one, knowing when you should ask a question, when you need to listen, or even coming down, like it can even be dwindled down to having empathy for another person when you're giving them criticism, right?
Yeah.
How do you want to be told all of that stuff? And that's a crucial part in the work that I do, especially now because I'm so front facing and I have to deal with people all the time now. And I almost only work with C-suite executives. So those are CEOs, executive directors. I need to make sure I'm showing up in those rooms and setting myself apart. You know, how do I want this conversation to go? Like, are they frustrated? Are they excited? Are they wanting support? What can I say or do that's going to elicit those feelings from them?
Yeah.
Right. And I even remember when I had my interview with the senator at that point, I had known that there was me and one other person.
Right.
And when we sat down, and it was over Zoom, mind you, Zoom is not like the best place to have like any sort of
it wasn't in
confidence.
person?
No,
Oh.
because he was in DC at the time,
Yeah.
so he couldn't meet me in person.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think Zoom overall, it's just hard to have confidence.
Definitely.
But I think you kind of just have to know, like, to not sound cringe, you have to know what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And why. Like, you're one of one. It doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter what you're doing, like, you have to recognize you're one of one. And whatever doesn't come to you is not for you. So when I had my interview with him, I remember telling him, I don't know who's on the other side of this interview, who you're interviewing, but I do know that they're not going to have the level of emotional intelligence that I can bring to this table for this job.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just seeing his reaction and being like, okay. And I walked away from that interview and I even called my mom. And I was just like, I would be really surprised if they don't offer me the job.
Yeah.
And now with work, it's kind of crazy because I'll get emails where they're like, hey, we've heard a lot about you in the community. Like, we can't wait for you to come meet us. Or, somebody called my mom from the mayor's office
Wow.
and they were like, your daughter's doing a great job because, my mom works in politics as well.
Great.
And we know kind of different people, but same people. So it's just like little things like that. And I haven't been there that long, but it's just like it really goes to show you have to bet on yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think another part of that is also knowing your purpose. And I feel like in college, you're figuring that out. And a lot of it is kind of directed towards what you're doing or what you're getting your degree in. But your purpose, it is like directly related to your happiness and what you do in life. And I think that's very, people don't recognize that anymore, especially in a world where money feels like we have to make money all the time. And I'm a firm believer that if you're doing something that makes you happy, like the money is just going to come.
Yeah.
But you can have money and be completely unhappy and unsatisfied in your
So
life,
true.
But I think that's the thing that I would say. Just understanding what are your strengths. Like when you look at yourself, what do you bring to the table? And I always tell people like, I am the table. Like, like I don't need to bring anything because I'm the table.
You're already standing on your own, you don't need to bring anything else. I
Right.
like that attitude, yes.
And I think that's sometimes hard to find when people, insecurity is a very easy thing to feel.
Yeah, it is. How would you recommend someone to build their emotional intelligence? If because it is such a important part of like social interaction. And for me personally, I would I would also probably see myself dealing with a lot of people. Like I enjoy being around people and figuring out like what they like to do, having conversations, right? Basically what you do. But you have to have a certain amount of emotional intelligence for that. Like how can you improve a quality like that?
I think a lot of it has to do with stepping outside of your comfort zone. Um, because everything happens that's good, that you feel like it's good, right? That's easy is naturally in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
One of the ways I feel like really helped me, which is so corny, but I would always talk to my Uber drivers. When
Mm.
I would Uber, I didn't have a car for a certain amount of time. And so when I would Uber, I would always talk to the driver because you kind of like don't know what you're gonna get.
No, not at all. There's so many different sides to Uber. Oh,
Exactly, and you're just like, okay, this can go one way. But also, it's recognizing sometimes people are really chatty, and you can kind of like recognize, oh, they sound more conservative or more liberal.
mhm.
And if they are conservative, I could say something that's gonna either make them combative or want to have an argument, or I could just make them, ease the conversation
Yeah.
and act like, oh yeah, like I agree with you.
Yeah.
It does, but like that's so nuanced in having a conversation. But also, I think a lot of it plays into. My brother has this saying a lot where when you're having a conversation with people, it should feel like a tennis match. Like I go, you go.
Hmm.
You know, I'm gonna take my time listening, and then when I feel like there's a question that I want answered, that's when I'm gonna answer a question. And I think it's much easier when you have open-ended conversations as opposed to like, hey, what did you do today? And you're just like, oh, I just went to spend time with my family.
That
Without,
doesn't get you
yeah,
anywhere.
it doesn't get you anywhere, right? Like without asking some kind of question or being like, what did you do today? You kind of like stop it where it starts. And I feel like emotional intelligence has so much to do with conversations and recognizing body language, recognizing words. That's a big one too, is like what words is someone using to like explain what they're talking about, you know, because that can kind of also help you gauge, is this more of an aggressive word or a little bit more passive? Um, and I think too, like understanding aggressive, passive people. Like my mom is very passive aggressive. So dealing with her can be different. My brother is very passive, and they always like to say that I'm aggressive, but I think it's just naturally in a different way, more like I'm very assertive in how I feel.
Hmm.
And sometimes that I've really had to learn, how do I interact with people and change how it comes off, right? Like they always say when you're having a conversation, it's not about what you're saying, it's about how you say it, right? So recognize, how are you saying it? Like, how are you saying it? How is it being perceived? How did you want it to be perceived? And so on and so forth.
Hmm.
Um, like if you go to a party with your friend and you're like, he doesn't really seem like he is doing what he's usually doing. That's something that can be emotional intelligence, when you should be taking a step back and being like, yo, are you okay? Like, you seem quiet.
Yeah.
You seem like something's wrong.
Yeah.
And then just being there to just be there.
Yeah.
And that can start with your family, right? And I think that's really something that can set people apart. But a lot of, like I said, a lot of people do not have. Like, having the self awareness to recognize how you affect other people is really crucial in whatever you do in work.
Most definitely. And then also, what you mentioned too, but being able to read other people. Because if your friend's feeling down and you're able to recognize that, that's speaking on your emotional intelligence. I think, I don't think I have too many friends that do that, and maybe that's just a guy's thing. Like some people might even recognize that you're acting differently, but you might not say something about it because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, what a taboo. But I don't know. I think it's going to take time for my friends to get there. I think right now there's not too many friends I would have. Like if I were acting off, they would ask about it.
Right.
Um, but that just
Does
goes
that
with
concern
emotion.
you though? Like,
Sometimes,
do you
yeah,
sit there and you're just like, I don't feel like I could be real?
yeah, most definitely. There has to be a balance between your friends, right? There has to be room to have fun and
Mm-hmm.
like take nothing seriously, and then there has to be another time where you can talk about the real stuff.
Right.
And some friends only have that switch where like they don't know how to talk about the real stuff. So some of my closer friends are the ones that can balance between both, where you can have like a serious conversation and then just also have fun at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely there. A good example would be recently one of our friends, and I already talked about him with this, but he left all of our group chats, deleted all of his social media stuff. Um, and then like immediately after he left, people were like, "Oh wow, like why did he leave?" And now they're worried about him. But they weren't reading it beforehand that
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't feeling any like that he wasn't feeling good. So, people were worried, is he going to hurt himself? Like where is his head at? But that only happened after he left.
Right.
So that kind of shows you like the type of friends they are necessarily.
And
Um
I think you can get cues earlier on where you're just like, okay, they're not responding,
yeah.
especially for that situation, right? Like they're not responding, they're not showing up to things. But there is so much to be said in simply asking, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, are you good? My friend, the other day, she was just telling me how she was really sick and she wanted to do something for New Year's Eve. And then yesterday she texted me. She was like, yeah, I'm not feeling good. I'm really sick. And it was just so abrupt, like the way she texted it. And I was just like, are you good? And it really just goes to show that you're interested, you're showing that you care. But also, you can always ask people if they're good even when they're good. Like
Yeah,
when they're actually doing good, you can say, are you good?
definitely.
Because I think that's the problem, is that we often ask too late, when too much has happened. We haven't paid attention. And when we should be asking is when you're good and you're bad.
Hmm.
Like you between the all like the polar opposites of where you are in life.
Yeah.
Um and I think I really tried to read on that, and I think for men too, like that's where your guys' mental health struggles is, like
Yeah.
you just aren't asking those crucial questions about how are you? Like what are you
How are you
feeling?
really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like okay, some girl dumped you. Like, how are you actually feeling about that?
Hmm.
Let's be real about it. We can be sad. It's okay.
Yeah. I definitely, as a friend, because I don't want to put all the blame on the
Hmm.
other guys. I definitely had my share in not picking up on signs and not like I think I maybe 2025 I need to be a better friend in that sense, like checking in on people, everyone
Hmm.
in a real sense, not just how's school, like are you going to football games, like all the surface level stuff. I could do a better job of actually making sure that everyone's doing okay.
Actually, it's funny you say that. I just recently, my friend, like one of my best male friends, he just wasn't being a good friend. And I was just like, you've been a bad friend lately.
And that takes a lot to say that.
You like, to tell somebody you have been a bad friend, like you have not shown up. And it goes to just even being like, you can't even check in, and that's a problem to me. And the older you get, you kind of realize that, at least for me, when I just turned 30, is like, you want the same energy given to you that you're putting out.
Hmm.
And that obviously comes in waves. Like sometimes you're 80%, sometimes they're 20, and it happens differently. But like overall, when you look at the like grand scheme of the relationship, do you feel like you're getting the most out of it? And like for you especially, that'll wane and wear as you get older.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, okay, I don't hear from them, they don't show up. But I think it's really awesome to recognize your own downfall and like your own relationships and taking accountability for that, because a lot of people don't want to take accountability for the things that they do.
Yeah, it's hard too because I don't you don't know what you're doing wrong until someone tells you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also the fact that you told your friend you're not being a good friend. Like probably should have done that a few times in my life by now. But it's so hard to be, and that's like the manager part as well. Like how to tell someone straight up what they're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's just hard. It's hard to do with your personal relationships to be like you're not needing what you're not doing what I need you to do,
Right.
and that's just I think that comes with growing as well, but that's definitely something that's hard for me and a lot of guys to do. Like if I'm being a bad friend, I wouldn't know it from anybody. They would not tell me. They would not tell me if I'm being a bad friend, and vice versa. I probably would have a hard time telling them. You
I
kind of just distance yourself.
Right, you're just like, you know what? I'm not even gonna address the situation. I'm just gonna act like it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But it's just like the little things, that I feel like I've come to realize that really make a difference in friendship. My friend, his uncle passed last year, and I had noticed, I was like, he's really posting about this a lot. And it can be as like so small. Like I think the small gestures are the ones that make the difference. And being like, and I sent him a text and I was like, yo, bro, I know your uncle just passed around this time. I hope you're doing good. Sending so much love to you. Here if you need anything. And I feel like that allows him to recognize, like, if you need somebody to talk to, I'm here. But also, like, there's no pressure.
yeah.
This is on you. What you need from me as a friend is also on you. And I also feel like for men, like, we forget that you can need things from your friends
Yeah.
too. Like, I always say friendship to me is I'm a low maintenance friend. I'm not going to text you all day. I'm probably not going to call you. But if you want to get together, I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
But also, to me, if I call you and I say, I need you, like, I need you here, I need you to show up for me, that to me is friendship. Like, yeah, you're there when the good times, and that's easy. But I need you to be there when I actually need you in my life, when
Yes.
I'm struggling. And my best friend, we've been best friends for, God, it'll be 15 years now, since high
That's
school.
amazing.
Freshman year of high school.
Wow.
But like, that's a long time. I'm not friends with anybody else like that from high school.
Right.
And, I look at our friendship, and sometimes it's like a natural wave of how things should progress, where there's a lot of consideration, where there's a lot of like, hey, I want to be considerate of how you feel, but I also want you to recognize, how do I get this information or this criticism to you without hurting your feelings?
Right.
I just saw this podcast actually, and it was talking about how like men don't have deeper relationships because they don't ask deeper questions.
That's so valid. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because it was talking about how like, I've asked like people like, oh, so and so broke up. And you'll ask like a man, like, oh, why did they broke up? And they're like, I don't know. And you're just like, why are you not asking those
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah.
Like, why are you not curious? And I think that it's okay to ask the deeper questions.
Yeah.
You know, how do we break that level of just being surface level and actually have something more tangible and real as this friendship progresses?
That's definitely a valid point. What other deep questions would you like? I don't know. I guess that kind of depends on what they're going through in life, right? To ask about the real stuff, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that could definitely be improved on.
I think another question. So, are you okay is great. How can I help?
Hmm.
That's a good one because
Shows you care.
yeah, exactly. Like, or what do you need from me? How can I make this better? What can I do that's gonna change how you feel? You know, those are some good questions, especially like I think when you obviously have something more intense going on, but
Hmm.
also like I said, conversation should just feel like a tennis match. Like you come over to my house, we have deep conversations
Yeah.
all the time. Like and it just feels so natural. And I think just recognizing like, oh, this is how this feels. How can I make this feel like this in other friendships or other relationships?
Yes.
You
That's
know?
what's beautiful about adults.
Yeah.
That you can have a real conversation instead. Sometimes the football talk gets old or
I
whatever
mean,
we're
sports
talking
talk
about.
is cool, but it's
For
also
so
just
long.
sports talk. Yeah.
Yeah. Like for so long. It's funny. I was telling one of my buddies this. I like really enjoy talking to adults because part of the thing is sometimes some of the conversations I have with my friends are so one-sided um, that it feels like I'm interviewing them, right? And that's the
Mhm.
worst thing. You know how that feels when you're just asking them and they're not asking you back, so it's not a tennis match. And the thing with adults is like when you see them, it's just like they know about you, they care about you, and they're asking about you immediately. And I was talking to a lot of adults at the basketball thing I was at today, and it's the same thing. Like they're always asking how school is, they're asking how you're doing, and sometimes you don't always get. Sometimes I don't always get that from my friends. So now that's related to like why I like talking to parents a lot more.
And I think that will probably
Change.
help, yes, but also it'll help you with your emotional intelligence because part of that is also just interacting with people who are different from you, right? The outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I even remember like, you guys all coming to my family like gatherings, like the people who are there, none of us look alike.
Right.
We're all different ages, we're all from different backgrounds, all of us do different things from work. And I remember when you came this past summer, I just was like, I love it because you just kind of throw yourself into the mix. You're not worried about anything. And I feel like you make it very natural. It doesn't seem like you're trying to fit in, like you're just being yourself,
Yeah.
which I think can be hard for people your age, especially if you have like social anxiety or you don't really know how to talk to people. But it's always nice when you could just have a good conversation.
Most definitely. It's refreshing.
Yeah, or like you walk away and you're just like, let me think about that a little bit
Yeah.
more. Or like how can I dive a little bit deeper into it? And that's just like a fun place to be.
Yes. And well, because then you can learn from people from the
Mm-hmm.
conversation. But it is beautiful that because I'll remember that for the rest of my life. Just being, I remember that day in the summer, like going there, everyone was different. I didn't know many people, but being able to having that diverse, everyone coming from different places, that's beautiful because that is out of the comfort zone. But that's how you meet new people and make new connections.
I
So I
think
thought that was really valuable.
I think the other thing too is like my family's just different.
Yeah, they are.
Being a twin, like I often tell people like because me and my brother are so close, it kind of establishes this existing relationship with all of our friends and our family, right? Like that we are neck and neck. We are as tight as we possibly can be. And then my mom just is another thrown into that mix of
Yeah.
that, of just being accepting. And that's why I love like the volleyball like Sundays, because they just feel fun.
Yeah.
It just it really doesn't matter anything. You're just like you said when we talked about it, like this is what life is supposed to feel like.
Most definitely.
Just having a good time with people and just being in that moment and just being like, man, this feels really nice.
Yeah.
You know?
One thing that has helped me, because honestly, 2024 was probably the best year of my life. But part of the reason for that is, well, there was a lot of change that happened. Like going into college, you can't relive that again. But,
Mm-hmm.
and graduating, that was amazing. The grad parties, whatever. But there's something to be said about, I'm very conflicted with social media right now. And I wanted to ask you about this. I really did try and stay off my phone this year, and I did a good job. I have the grayscale on my phone. Like literally, if you go on my phone, it's gray. Everything's gray, black and white. I don't have vibrations on. I don't have notifications on. That also sucks because I will miss a lot of calls because I don't even hear my phone. So that sucks. And people get mad at me for that. But besides that, like me not being on my phone in the moments that matter really helps elevate your life.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are I try and put my phone down as much as possible when I'm with people that I care about. Um, I've had friends look at their phone in the middle of recording a podcast like 5, 6 times. I'm like, come on, this is a moment.
Right.
And you're on your phone right now trying to like, I don't know, distract yourself, but getting off the phone is super big, but then it conflicts with what I'm trying to do. Right? Because now I'm like, well, like how am I supposed to promote stuff and how to like it's a tool and it's also really bad. How do you feel about it? Technology in general, but also social media.
And it's so funny because like you grew up with social media. Like it had
Yeah,
already existed, right? And for me, Instagram wasn't a thing until I was in college.
that's
So
wild.
like
Yeah,
I don't think Instagram started until like my freshman year of college.
right.
And like now, even right now, I'm pretty sure you know this, we've been friends for a long time, but like there's months that I go with my Instagram deactivated because I just can't handle it.
So bad.
I'm starting to feel like that right now, especially because I get to a point where like you're like the brain rot, but also I'm just like I feel kind of, this is gonna sound weird, but just like not in real life.
Mm.
Like you're on your phone so much where you're just like,
You're not even living at that point.
yeah, exactly. Like you're just not really aware of like reality at
Yeah.
that point. And so I think that the other part too, especially as a woman, is like the validation aspect of like social media. Because who are we doing this for? And I feel like that's a question for women specifically, especially because you have influencers, you have OnlyFans, like you
Mhm.
have a lot of different like things in there where you're just like, who is this for and
Mhm.
why am I doing it? Um, and right now I'm just really over it. I'm just like, okay, this is whatever. And I think too, social media has gotten even less fun because now that you can just like a story, like nobody has to swipe up, or you don't
Oh
have
my
any,
God.
like you don't engage with
No,
people
there's no conversation, it's just a
yeah,
heart.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like you don't engage with people the way you used to engage with people, and that kind of has taken the fun out of social media, to me,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And I'm just like, oh, I would have loved to have a conversation about this, or that's why I feel like I love asking like a poll, which is something that I did on like my dog's Instagram, where I'm
Mhm.
like, people love answering a poll or like
Yeah.
giving you a suggestion. How do I interact with people that way? But also, I have my dog's Instagram, who I have not been active on. And even that, like, it was getting to a point where I could kind of monetize it. And I was just like, this is so much time. Like, so many outtakes for the dog.
Yeah.
Like, And it would, I was just telling you, somebody just sent her stuff in the mail. Like, it's kind of crazy for the dog herself, where it's like she's going viral. We have people commenting. We have millions of people watching a single video on our page, and we don't even have 3,000 followers.
Hmm.
But, like, you're a micro influencer, right? Like, you can still monetize from stuff like that. But it just is a lot. Like, to be doing everything on your phone and taking videos. And I think the best part, especially for you when it comes to like taking videos, cutting them, all of that stuff, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, and how you're supposed to, you know, get them to a point where they start trending, is setting aside one day. That's your whether it's your podcast day,
Making your day. Yeah.
it's your social media day. That's the only, like, maybe it's twice a week, but like those are the only days that you do it. And
Yeah.
then you kind of prioritize your life in the other days. I think that allows you to kind of have more balance in your life
Yeah.
without feeling like you're a slave to your phone.
Yeah. That's
which
really
which
good
sucks.
advice.
But
Yes.
I will tell you, one of my biggest pet peeves is like people having their phone on do not disturb. Like,
Oh, for real?
yeah, like I'm like, you always text me back, so
I'm
if
not
you
on
never,
Do Not Disturb though.
yeah, like, but you always text me back, so I'm never worried about it. But like, I have family and friends who are like that, and I'm just like, if I can't get a hold of you, what is the point?
It's true. That's what it was created for at the end of the day.
Yeah,
When you're
right.
not even responding. Like I'll respond, it just it's not immediate anymore. There is no notification.
That's one thing I think is like, like motivation.
About yourself? I don't think that's a bad thing. You make it seem like that is the only thing. When you have so much going on, but it seems like, oh, my whole day's free, but it might not be. Yeah.
But to me, it also just makes sense because I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, I can guarantee, honestly, I your response time,
Yeah.
put in a request for something. My response time is always within less than 30 minutes. Like, I will
Yes.
always respond to you.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's you showing up as a good friend. That's another example of that.
It's,
You're responding with urgency.
but is it urgent?
Well, what do you mean is it
Like,
urgent?
is it like you're texting me about something that's not urgent, but I'm still responding to you with
Okay.
some
Okay.
level of like quickness.
I guess it depends on what is being talked about.
Like,
Yes.
that's what I'm
Sure.
saying.
You know what? I think, it becomes difficult when you start playing games because that's what a lot of people do. I've played plenty of games on Snapchat with response time. Plenty of games. And I'm a minimal game player. Like there are people that will like, oh, he left me on delivered for 3 hours. Oh, I'm leaving him on delivered for 12 hours. And then you're checking like snap scores. Snapchat's just terrible. Yeah, I logged out yesterday. That was like we're starting the year off right. No more shit.
It's still there. I
Yeah,
just don't ever log on.
which
Like
is great.
I just the older you get, you're like, Snap just isn't it.
No, it's not. I'm waiting for the transition period and it's not coming. It's not coming. People are still using it. You know what though? 2025 is my year of asking for numbers instead of snaps, I think.
You like that too, because even when I was single, like people would always be like, "What's your Instagram?" And I'm like,
Instagram.
I don't know you. Like, I'm not gonna follow you. I don't. And then it's not even like that's me being rude. It's just like your Instagram is kind of supposed to be like people that you actually follow, not like just following everyone. At least that's what I think.
Yeah.
And even sometimes, like, I get random DMs from people, and I'm just like, I don't know you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not accepting a message from you if I don't know who you are.
That's valid.
I don't care if you're trying to hit me up. Like, it does not matter. I do not know who you are. And I think that to me, like, as a woman, like, that's weird. Like, I'm just like,
Yes. Definitely valid.
you haven't met me in person. Like, can you just ask for my phone number? But like you said, a lot of people, I just don't, I think the other part is the reciprocated energy again, right? I text you back quick, you text me back quick. There's not a lot of people that I'm friends with who like are not responding to me within a reasonable time.
Hmm.
I just don't do that.
Right.
And if that's the case, okay, you play your game. You playing it by yourself,
Yeah,
but I'm not there.
that's fair.
It doesn't make and I think I really am curious like why do you think people play those games? Like is it a power move? Like is it just to take the
I
control
feel
over the
like it is.
conversation?
Yeah, and it's messed up because all of the time being invested is now in Snapchat, Like you could be doing a school assignment instead of thinking about this bullshit, like how
Mhm.
long you're gonna leave the person on opened or whatever. And you know what? A lot of people don't play as many games as they used to in high school with that sort of stuff, but I think yeah, it probably is a control thing, right?
I
Or
think
like making them want you more or like
does it
does it? No, it does not.
like go back to
Yeah, I guess so. I've never thought about this.
honestly this day and age, if you're telling me that you're not on your phone, I just don't believe it. Like it just is not the actual truth. You know, even if you're not on your phone or like what you do is
I
like try
still
to
check.
you still check your phone,
Yeah.
right?
It's an undeniable piece of life now.
Right. Or like I've really come to appreciate when people say, and I do this a lot, where if I don't respond to you within a reasonable time, I say, sorry, I was doing this.
Yeah.
Because it's just making you aware. I'm not ignoring you. I'm not trying not to respond to you, but I am busy with something.
Yeah.
And especially for me with work, I have two phones now that I have to keep track of, which is
Mhm.
really a pain. Um, I don't know. I would challenge you this year to just respond to people quickly,
Yeah,
no
that's
matter who it is.
definitely.
Even if they like are playing games and like waiting 3 hours.
Then they're not the person,
No, but I'm saying if you're interested in them, maybe that same energy is gonna come back.
Yeah.
Like maybe you're just like, okay, you know what? I'll text you quickly for like a week and then recognize, all right, this is not how I'm trying to deal with it.
Yeah.
This is not my person, like you're saying. But also, I've come to recognize from just mental health that everybody deals with things differently. So you can approach it a certain way, but you can also just be like, I would like to talk to somebody who wants to text me.
Yeah.
That's not a problem by any means
No.
necessary.
I think this year I did not play many games.
Mhm.
Like I think I do a lot of times I'll be like I'm responding, I don't care how long you're gonna wait
Text
to
me back.
respond. But there are certain times where I'll think about it and then end up doing it on purpose, which is kind of weird. But yeah, responding quickly is always a good goal to have, I think.
I'm gonna
Because
run with my beige flag then.
yeah, yeah, run with it. Because that's the same energy that you want back.
Right.
So, but the last thing that I wanted to talk about, because it kind of leads into the relationship part, you've had a long-term relationship, very healthy one, I would say. And I'm just curious on, what advice can you give to honestly anybody on how to sustain that relationship, how to find a relationship like that. And it could be for someone who's already in one or someone like myself who doesn't have one right now.
I think that, man, relationships are very complicated.
They are.
And I've never had parents who were married like you have. So it's even different for me because I've never had an example of what like a long-term relationship is supposed to look like.
Right.
And neither one of my parents have been in a long enough relationship for me to like uses it as an example of something that I can aspire to
Hmm.
have. I've been in a lot of like, a lot of my relationships have been around 2 years. This has been the longest relationship I've been in, which is 5 years, 5.5 years now. Um, and I think one of the things that you can do is just recognize that you're you're just trying to figure it out, right? But also being considerate, being understanding, being empathetic. I think also leading with good intention is a very great thing to do in any relationship. Like, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but this is why I'm doing whatever I'm doing. Or, like, I didn't have ill intent for why I did it, but I recognize how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other part, and I say this like very loosely, but I think I'm different because I grew up with my brother. So I grew up around a lot of male friends. And I feel like that made it easier for me to just get along with men in general. I have like the two kids I mentor are two both males. Like that's
Right.
wild. And but also just being secure in yourself. I feel like that's one really, really big one is like there's a huge difference from having insecurities, right? We all have insecurities, and those can be, something that you feel about yourself, whether it's like you don't like your hair, you don't like your feet, or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Having insecurities, we all have that. And then having an insecure personality, that's drastically
Mm-hmm.
different. And because I dated this guy a long time ago and he was so insecure and I feel like I was always doing everything to make him feel better about himself.
Yes.
Which I remember my dad saying he had this saying where it's like you can't pump rainbows up somebody else's ass. Essentially like you can't make them feel good about themselves. Yeah. They have to do that. So that became my biggest red flag. Is like if you're insecure, if you're not okay. I think it's very different for me because I think that you should be able to have male and female friends, whatever sex you have. Like there should be enough trust in your relationship that you can have those. And I think that's one thing that has really helped in my relationship is that Darius has always allowed me to, and I don't want to use allow, like he's always been okay with me having male friends. And he's never tried to wedge himself in between that. One of my really good male friends I went to East with, we're still friends. Me and him go grab dinner together, like casually, and it's fine. And I think when you're just securing yourself, securing your relationship, you can do those things. Mm-hmm. But when you're insecure, when you don't trust your partner, or when you have your own trauma, right? Like if you've been cheated on that is unresolved, those can stem out in different ways. So I would say that, but also larger picture, recognizing that you don't become one. That's not what a relationship is supposed to be. You are two people who just come together, mm-hmm. but you're still separate. Mm-hmm. Like you still have your own individual goals. They still have their own individual goals. And you just try to align that so you guys could still be together. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, that's fine. Life happens, relationships happen, whatever. But the older you get, the more I think you start to realize like we're all just figuring it out. I've seen and heard so many different situations in relationships where I feel like I'm starting to recognize now that I'm not really any person to judge on why you decide to do what you do.
Right.
I can support you. I maybe don't have to agree with you and I can voice that, but I'm not you. I don't know the ins and out of your relationship, so I can't really speak on it. But overall, I think the big one is just being yourself. Like, even what I was talking about with work, you're one of one. Recognize that you are special. And that's always like been helpful for me, right. Whether I've been dating or not. It's just being like, I'm awesome. And if you want to be around me, cool. And if you don't, that's cool too. I'm not going to press you on being in my life. And who wants to be here is going to be here.
Right.
And I think in that, like, now I've gotten to a point as I've gotten older where there's a lot of people who gravitate towards me, where I just give off this energy where I'm like, I want you to be here.
Yeah.
And it comes back and it's like, it's awesome. And so when you're dating, just recognizing you're just figuring it out. They're just figuring it out. But also like communication is probably like the biggest thing in relationships that I feel like we don't talk about a lot.
Right.
How do we communicate how we're feeling? Why are our feelings valid? Or, my brother always likes to tell me just because your feelings are valid doesn't make them right. I hate that one, but it's understanding like, yes, they're valid, but in this situation, they're not right.
Yeah.
How do we talk about that? And and I'll be completely honest, like my relationship is not perfect at all. I definitely think it's healthy. I think that we talk about things, but there's a very ugly part to relationships too, where you feel like you can love this person, but there are days where you're like, I hate this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about that a lot because there's such a like a rose-colored glasses idea of what a relationship's supposed to be like, and there's a lot of small things in there that makes it complicated, whether it's family, whether it's money, whether it's just trying to figure out how you guys mesh together. And sometimes it's not pretty.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's just like, okay. And I've come to realize it's really easy to talk about the good stuff. It's very hard to talk about the shit that's bad.
Yeah.
Like when you're hanging out with somebody, right? You're always like, oh yeah, they did this for me and they did that for me, and that's all great. But there's other stuff where I need to be talking about it, where I'm just like, maybe, and I think too, we don't talk about it because we feel shame or embarrassed, but we also should be wanting other people's perspectives on maybe I shouldn't be treated this way? And I think those things can really aid into having a good relationship, but also recognizing what are your own flaws? Like, what are you bringing to the table that's not working in your relationship? How do
Yeah.
we talk about them? And I think a lot of people fear, I don't want a partner to change me. Life changes you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about your partner. Life comes and life changes
It's
you.
true.
So, but it's also just being willing to be like, I don't necessarily think you're changing. To me, like a relationship is like a plant. Like you're growing up. Sometimes you have a leaf that doesn't work for you and it falls off. Sometimes you're growing really great for a long time and then you're stunted for a while, right? Or you're just not getting enough sunlight, or maybe you're not getting watered, or there's some type of nuance in your relationship and it's forever growing into something, but it's still growing upwards, just in a different way.
Mm.
So I think that's something that we have to give ourselves grace with relationships is just like we're figuring out as we go.
Yeah.
Either you work or you don't, but at the end of the day, it's just really like, how does this person show up for you? How are they choosing you? And that's one thing to kind of that's difficult like when you get older because you can be so consumed by another person like in just the feeling of like being loved, where oftentimes I think you forget what you want or what you need emotionally, and recognizing like taking a step back and being like, you know what, this does not feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I also don't like the saying of like there's a million fish in the sea. Yes, we get it, there are, but sometimes it just takes a while. Like there's a million fish, but you may not be catching fish for a while.
The pole might be broke.
The boat is sinking right now.
No opportunities to fish.
I mean, what do you feel like? You know, like, how is it for you?
It's hard because I wanted, I still want to find a relationship in college, but like as a freshman going in, that's not what people are looking for.
Mhm.
So it's hard because you're looking for something that most aren't, and then it becomes hard to find that person. So I'm still searching. I'm still kind of trying to figure it out myself, like if I should be looking for a relationship this early or not. And that just gets hard because a lot of people are just trying to like just have the college experience, meet a lot of new people, get with a lot of people.
Right.
So it becomes difficult.
You also have like a culture chats to that
Yeah,
as well.
that's the main thing.
Yeah.
That is the culture as a freshman and as a college student at a big school.
Do you like typically approach girls or like have you been rejected? How does it make you feel? I'm so curious about this because like a lot of my male friends, they're like, "Oh, if I think you're cute, like I probably am not gonna go up to you." So I'm just like I'm curious or they feel very strongly about being rejected.
Yeah, that's 2024 was a big year for me in that sense because the fear of rejection is always there. Um, but I think once you do it a couple times, once you approach women and a couple times and actually just say like, "Hey, I think you're beautiful. Like, what's your name?"
Hmm.
I think it gets easier, and it has gotten easier for me to do that. I'm very proud of the way that I've grown in that sense. Like, if I do find someone attractive, I honestly I'd say I'm maybe more 50-50. Like, I still get really nervous, but I will let them know. Um, there's been a few girls at the dining hall that I've approached. There was a girl at the bar, like we were watching the Tennessee game at the bar, and I waited literally till the fourth quarter to talk to her about. But I did, at the end of the day, I did. And a lot of times it doesn't go your way, but that's the factor that you're talking about is being confident in who you are and what you bring to the table. Like if I'm going up to you and you're not rocking with it, that's fine. But if I'm going up to you, I know that I'm bringing something to the table. Like I'm confident enough in who I am now to approach more women and tell them like or ask for their number.
Right.
Normally it hasn't been for their number, but same idea.
I also, this is something I say a lot is nothing changes if nothing changes, right? Like if you don't go up to somebody and they do reject you, who cares?
Right.
Like
You have to
absolutely no,
realize that nothing
absolutely no
changes. No,
shit, right?
no.
Like, and it's
You're not going to see them
yeah,
again.
also too like it's such a blimp that we shouldn't care about it, and we really need to rethink the idea that okay, if I was rejected, they're just not for me.
Yeah, it's
Like it
okay.
just does. Like cool, they're beautiful, they're whatever, but the vibe wasn't there,
Hmm.
and that's fine. And I think that's where a lot of people do dating wrong too, or especially like for my age. I was just talking to my friend this morning about it, where he's like, a lot of women specifically are looking for the wrong thing. Where like they want a meal or they want something to be paid for.
Hmm.
And I feel like the most like one of the best dates could probably be going for a walk.
I agree.
Like
Yeah,
you take a lot of the like expectations out of it
yeah,
and you just have a chance to just be like, let's just go for a stroll and try to get to know each other. And if we vibe, cool. And if we don't, nothing
that's cool
happened.
too.
Nobody spent any money, like
Low
it.
key so true though. Wow.
But also too, like you're not pressed about being dressed a certain way. Like you can just kind of show up as yourself.
Hmm.
You're just going for a walk. It doesn't matter.
Most definitely.
And I think like for me, like there's a lot of women who are just like they want to be taken care of. Like they want even when I used to date, I would always split the bill on the first date. Honestly, most of the dates.
Hmm.
And it's mostly because I really wanted people to recognize that this is cool, but I don't need you. Like, I don't need you to pay for me for dinner.
Yeah,
I don't need you to pay for me for a drink. I am completely capable of doing that by myself. But also recognize, like, I also just don't, for women specifically, I don't like the obligations I feel like that comes with things being paid for.
right.
Whether it's sexually, whether it's emotionally, whatever it is. I don't want anyone to be like, well, I paid for your meal, so this is what.
Should happen.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like that's fucked up.
But if the guy tried to split the bill, how does that work? Because you took initiative.
Right.
I don't feel like I could do that. I don't know if I could
So
necessarily split the bill like that.
I don't like what do you mean?
I think if I'm asking the girl out and I take her to dinner,
And you
it's
want
expected of me to pay, which I
right,
will.
right.
But if I were to propose splitting the bill now, you got me fucked up. Like I'm not gonna do that.
I don't think it's your role. I don't think
Yeah,
you I
no, it's not my role. It's
you
not my
get to
place.
choose that.
Yeah, I'm just most definitely, most definitely. That's a good move on you. Right. That's hilarious.
I was tell dudes like, hey, I think you're cute. Let me buy you a shot. I didn't care what came with it
Yeah.
because I was just like, it doesn't matter to me. But also, what girl is out there buying a guy?
No, yeah.
You
You're pointing and shooting right now.
know, right?
That's
Like,
elite game. That's elite game. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I'll probably have to pull that one out. That's easy.
I think my brother just told me something where he was like, women have a lot more control than they realize because it's rare you're going to reject somebody who's and I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. Like for men too, again, like I said, who cares if you get rejected? I think if you are hurt by that, it's just ego, right? Your ego is just taking a hold of whatever you're feeling or what's going on,
Right.
which doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
The other thing though is I haven't really seen I don't know that I've met too many girls that are really just trying to get a meal out of it.
but
I've
you're at a different age
It's
than
a
I
different
am.
age. It is a different age.
But also too, like there's a lot of things, small gestures go such a, like if you go for a walk, right?
Hmm.
When we went to the bakery, like we've gone for a walk before and
Yeah.
just caught up.
That was a good time.
Like, like that's a good time. We're
Yeah.
going for a walk. We're grabbing a pastry or coffee before, but like even small things like, okay, you're going to meet up with them. You know you're on the way. Hey, I'm gonna stop and get a Starbucks. Do you want something? Those are just like small things where you're like kind of setting yourself apart, but also you're just showing that you can be considerate.
Definitely.
And or I think another thing when you're dating specifically is it's conversation should be like tennis, but when it comes to intention, it should be like basketball. And what I mean like that is like the ball's in your court at sometimes, right? And
Hmm.
the ball's in my court at sometimes. And that's recognizing that if somebody asks me out on a date and I'm just like, yeah, like I'm absolutely game for it. But then let's say something with my job comes up. At that point, the ball's in my court to now make sure that I'm setting up for us to do something. Because you asked, so now it's my turn
Right.
to like complete whatever it is. And then just recognizing when you're dating, that's how it is. You go, I go. The ball's in your court right now.
Hmm.
You made the intention. Now I have to make the intention.
Hmm.
Not everything should be one sided.
Yes.
Like, women have as much power as they want, but for whatever reason, we give a lot of it to the men.
Right.
And that's stupid because if you want to see somebody, just see them.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to see you, cool. Okay.
It's not the right person.
Right, exactly. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
you know? So I think that's like that's like a key piece in also recognizing if they're even interested. Because if you ask somebody out on a date and they cancel on you, but they're not.
They'll make an effort to come back.
Yes.
Most definitely.
All right, cool. I'm not going to hit you up.
Yeah.
It's your turn. I can be understanding, but also I'm not pressed.
That's valid.
Like recognizing those small things and being like, all right, if she was interested, I think the whole if they wanted to, they would goes both ways with men and with women. If they wanted to, they would. If they wanted to see me, they would. But also recognizing if you want to, you can.
Hmm.
If you want to talk to them, you can.
Most definitely.
And then responding after. I think that's like you can get to if they wanted to, they would at some point. But if you want to talk to them, you have that option too. Are they going to talk to you back? Okay. If they wanted to, they would. And if they're not going to, cool, I'm out.
That's the in-game read right there.
Right, exactly. It's easy. It really is so easy.
It
but
is
also,
easy, but it's so easy to overthink it.
It is, but also like I think that's the piece. Emotional intelligence can be applied to everything in your life, where you're just like you can read how something is being perceived and how it's coming off, and then make a decision later.
Most definitely.
And just being like, all right, they seem interested. You can send a text after a date too and be like, hey, I had a great time.
Yep.
Let's do this again soon.
Hmm.
If they respond and are reciprocating to it, like that's great. And if not, now you know where you stand. Everything can like we're in so much control of our own lives. I just sometimes think that we don't do it the way we should.
Right.
So that's the
That's
easy.
great advice.
I've been single not that long, but
There's a reason for that though.
yeah.
Because she knows she has game. She knows what she's
You know
doing.
what? I'm gonna commend it to like I feel like my thing is just always being respected. I don't really care anything, but like I do want you to be respected.
Yeah.
And I remember I talked to one guy one time, and this was when I worked at the rec, so this one is when I was single a while ago. And he was just like, "You're not picking up your phone." And I was really busy at work. And he said something, he messaged me back, and he was like, "Well, I'm just gonna call somebody else." And I was just like,
Wow.
"You got me all the way fucked up, all the
Yeah.
way around." And I finally had a chance to check my phone, and I was just like, I have been busy at work. And then I just was like, all right, cool. That's fine. You do you. You're not going to be out here treating me a certain way. And he said something. He was like, nah, I was just playing. Like, please come over. And I remember texting him back, and I was just like, if you're going to treat me like an option, I'm going to show you how many I have.
Yeah.
Like, do not, I'm not the one. Don't play with me.
Yeah.
We can be cool and we can be respectful, but like I'm not anybody that you think you could. And I remember him saying, just come. Like, just come over, like it'll be fine. And I was just like, honestly, if I let this slide, you're gonna think this is okay. And
Yeah.
that's not what I want.
That's forced.
Yeah, exactly. Like now you've ruined it for both of us.
Yeah.
Like I'm never coming over ever
You
again.
barely any time.
Right.
Like you were busy for probably one day, and he thought that that was the end of the world. Crazy.
The other thing is like recognizing we're not better than anybody else. Whether you're beautiful, whether you're smart, it does not matter. It doesn't make you a better person than other people. So just lead with kindness. That's all that it's like it's so simple.
Yeah, it is. The last thing, because it's been a minute.
I'm like, how long have we been here?
You know, so it's 2025 now. I think it's only fair to talk about, what do you want to see from this year from yourself, and what do you want to work on? It doesn't need to be a resolution necessarily, but like just something that you've thought of recently.
Let's see.
And something that you want to go well.
Go well. I'm really excited to dive a little deeper into work this year.
Yeah.
Especially because my job is fun. I think I don't typically have resolutions. I have plans to go to Japan and Europe this year.
That's amazing.
I'm really excited to go to Japan.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna go for at least 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, so that'll be dope.
That'll be amazing.
My big goal is to buy a house by the end of next year.
Okay.
By the end of this year.
Okay.
I'm hoping that whether it's a condo, whatever, just having equity in something.
Yeah.
Especially because housing prices are crazy, just cost of living is insane, but just kind of doubling down on like budgeting and life and like how do I have my own space. And one thing I want to work on maybe is I think I'm already really good at this, but just like continuing to show up for people.
Yeah.
Whether it's at work, I really want to always show gratitude for the people in my life. And that's just being like, as simple as having you guys over for dinner. Just being like, you guys are here. I want to show that I appreciate you. I want to always do that with no ulterior motive in how you feel about me. This is just who I am.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably it, is like just continuing to show more gratitude to the people in my life.
That's big for me too. Because not a lot of people know how to express that. And once, I find that once you express that to them, they will obviously reciprocate it back. But definitely with my own friendships, it's something that's unspoken most of the time. Between us, it's very open. Like, I'm obviously super grateful to have you in my life, but for a lot of my friends, they wouldn't otherwise say that first. I have to kind of let them know, but it's important.
Right.
It's important to let them know that they matter.
But also too, like you're doing it without wanting something back, right?
No,
Right.
it's
And
just
that's
expressing
yes,
something.
exactly. Like you're just being like, I really appreciate you. And I think that matters no matter what point you are in your life
Yeah.
to to just say that you are appreciative that somebody exists, that they're here, right? So I think that those are my big ones this year. What about you? What are
I love
yours?
it. I I always make well, not always. Last year I made a paper list of all the stuff that I wanted to do, like all the goals. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was good because I always had it right in front of me. Um, and I need to do that still today. But I think one thing that I had last year was being grateful for the things I have and not focusing on what you don't have. And that could be in terms of, physical possessions, or I would get really jealous over people that had relationships and I really wanted that, but like letting it come and not focusing on what you don't have, like focusing on the family, having you in my life, having Evan, like all these people. Continuing to be grateful is a big one. And then I don't really know how I feel about the podcast thing. If I can balance the media, like if I can balance it so I'm not on my phone all the time, I think that's something I want to talk to. I want to have conversations with a lot of cool people. That's
Right.
really just the goal. Um, but I need to think about it more in terms of like relationships, probably.
You know, you are so young. Like there things life will come,
Yeah,
relationships will come. Wanting to be loved, I understand it. So just know whatever's meant for you is on the way,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Everyone has the path, different
Yeah,
path. So
exactly.
it's one last thing though, as you mentioned, like expressing gratitude. Yesterday at the New Year's party we were at, there was this kid that he was just great. We just had met him, super funny dude, and it was right after it turned 2025, and I just tapped him on the shoulder and I was like, dude, I love your energy. Like you are a dope ass dude. Like I want to, hang out with you another time. I think letting people know that you appreciate their energy, even if they're like for him, I don't know him as a person, but I
Right.
did enjoy meeting him. And people, I just like letting people know that too, that they feel appreciated even from a stranger's perspective.
I want to do that more, that part.
I think you could easily do that.
Because I just there was a guy at Costco and he had like an older man, the nicest head of hair.
Yeah,
And I was like, "You have amazing hair."
just sliding
Yeah,
compliments. Yeah,
exactly. And
good.
he's just you have amazing
Yeah,
hair. And I was just like, "All right, cool. I think I'm gonna start doing this more often."
right.
But
One kind act per day.
yeah,
Like it's as simple as that.
what's that thing? Have you ever seen Klaus?
No,
What?
no, don't know what that
One
is.
of the greatest Christmas movies.
Okay.
But there's a line in there and it says, one small act can spark another. So it's just like you do something and hopefully it just like is instilled in another
Mm,
person. Hopefully that they'll do something else, right?
right, right. And
So
that's how you make the world a better place.
exactly. So
Leading with kindness,
and empathy. Empathy is a big one.
empathy,
Yeah,
and
kindness
emotional
and empathy.
intelligence.
Yeah, and exactly. You get it. You
Yeah,
get it.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. But with that being said, that's if you don't have anything else, that was a great episode. Thank you. If someone watched an hour and 37 minutes, thank you.
We're gonna cut
Thank you,
this, don't
because
worry.
I mean, thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Granted. We're Audi 5000. Peace.
Bye.